look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Oh, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I am your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to Time for Hemp on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and of course, iHeartRadio, or you are at the timeforhemp.com website, where we are broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a team of hardworking activists, all dedicated to ending prohibition all around the world. It is Wednesday, and every Wednesday we celebrate the hardworking people at LEAP, LEAP.cc, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And my joint host today is Peter Chris. Peter's been with us for almost 5 years, and this is his last day as the official joint host on the big broadcast. Peter, thank you for being my joint host for this lengthy period of time.
Yeah, I would have been sitting here for the last 4.5 years doing absolutely nothing on Wednesday if it wasn't for Casper Leitch. So I want to thank you very much. You're the one that is sharing your audience with us, and I just want to make sure that you know that we understand that and appreciate that. So it's been good, and it's been a good run. I've had fun for the last 4.5 years, but I'm getting to be an old man, and it's time to give it to somebody else and let them play with it. And I'm sure you'll enjoy Lenny Freeling, and he's got a much better radio voice than I do. Of course, I got a much better face for radio than he does. But I just want to point out something out. We're recording the show on December 17th, and that's an important day for a reason, particularly in the issue we talk about here. And that's because that is the day that the relationships between doctors and patients changed in America. Because that was the day that we passed the Harrison Narcotics Act in 1914, 100 years ago today. There's two stupid things we did 100 years ago today, or two stupid things happened. One was this year. One was the Harrison Narcotics Act. The other one was World War I. Okay? Anyhow, the Harrison Narcotics Act came out of a movement that started in the late 1800s, and that movement was called the Protestant Reformation. And it was a big resurgence of religion and Protestantism in America. Beginning of the 20th century, they were having tent meetings all over the country and everything else. And as anybody that's listened to the show before, I always use that as an example of the racial aspect of alcohol prohibition, because those Protestants had a couple things on their agenda. Two of them were they didn't like Catholics and they didn't like Jews. And the other thing was they thought that they had a right, and they started passing laws that enforced their view of morality on society. And the Harrison Narcotics Act was an example of those kind of laws. Give you an example of other things we used to outlaw. We used to outlaw being gay. We used to outlaw tattoos. When I was a kid in the 50s, I almost never saw anybody with a tattoo because all the tattoo parlors were illegal. Because, hell, you can't let people paint their own skin. I mean, how could that be a liberty? Okay, so they passed the Harrison Narcotics Act. And when they passed the Harrison Narcotics Act, I mentioned at the beginning that it changed the relationships between doctors and their patients. And why I say that is this. Up until 1914, the Harrison Narcotics Act and the Prescription Drug Program, in order to buy a drug, all you had to do was walk into a pharmacy and have enough money to pay for it, and you could buy any drug you wanted to buy. In fact, they sold heroin through the Sears and Roebuck catalog back then. Then the Harrison Narcotics Act came along, and they started the Prescription Drug Program. And when I mention that, the reason I mention it is this. That Prescription Drug Program changed the relationship between doctors and their patients. Up until that point, a doctor was your medical advisor. You went to the doctor, you told him what the problems were. The doctor would make suggestions to you about what you could do. You took those suggestions down to the pharmacist. You either bought what the doctor suggested, or you maybe took other suggestions from other people, and then the pharmacist said to you, what do you want? After Harrison Narcotics Act and the prescription drug program passed, if the doctor didn't give you a a prescription form, the pharmacy was not allowed to sell you the drug. Now, when I'm talking to a Rotary Club and I explain to them the impact of this, I use myself in that environment as an explanation. I am standing in front of those 35 Rotarians giving my opinion about drug policy. I'm just there as an advisor. If, when that meeting ends and they go to leave that room, they find me standing at the door and I tell them that they cannot leave that room unless they have my permission, that's a fundamental change in our relationship. And I want to see doctors going back to being the medical advisors that they were designed to be, and allow people to go into pharmacies and buy anything and put anything in their body they choose to put there. And if what they do after they put that in their body causes them to harm another person or another person's property, we put them in jail. And if all it does is screw up their own life, that's their business, their family's business, maybe their doctor's business, but it should not be the criminal justice system business. And this is the date, December 17th, 1914, when drugs moved out of the hands of the users and the manufacturers and moved into the hands of the federal government, and they started telling you what drugs you can take. I just wanted to give that little background, and now I want to say Jim Gierach is our guest today. Jim Gierach is a former prosecutor from Chicago area, still lives in that area, and an attorney. He's been in this movement damn near as long as I have, I think. I came into this thing in 1989. I don't know when you first entered it, but it's right around there. And we've been doing this, banging this drum a long time. And Jim Gierach, I'd like to welcome you aboard.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, Peter, and Casper as well. And actually, it was the same year, Peter. 1989 was the the first year I gave an End the Drug War speech. I wanted to be state's attorney of Cook County on the idea of drug policy reform to stop the violence.
Yeah, it's interesting because today some people look at us for talking about legalizing drugs as being crazy. Back then, they thought we were insane.
Well, I liked your scenario. What is it? First they say they say you don't understand, then you're nuts, and then you're crazy. What is your scenario of the progression of people?
Oh yeah. In fact, I just watched something on television the other day. It was about Admiral Hyman Rickover, the guy that created the Nautilus, the nuclear submarine for the Navy. Yeah. And it was a 2-hour documentary. And as we're watching it, Paula says, that's my lovely wife, says to me, there we go, stupid, crazy genius all over again. Because when he first started talking about that stuff in the late 1940s, early 50s, everybody thought he was stupid. And when he persisted, everybody thought he was crazy. Then they call him a genius, you know.
Well, Paul has got the progression down in a nutshell. Stupid, crazy, genius.
Exactly.
Anyway, but congratulations, Peter. 4.5 years you've been talking to people about freedom and liberty and the right for people to decide what to put in their own bodies, and the stories you tell and the way you explain it. For example, the Harrison Narcotics Act. I think it really has changed the relationship of patient to physician, and then people start making money from selling drugs other than things that are less harmful, like marijuana, and it puts a useful medicine to the side and outlaws it, and makes life more difficult for many people for a long time. And so now, finally, through really not the leadership of politicians, but through the leadership of of activists and shows like Time for Hemp, the people are passing initiatives which are putting common sense back in drug policy and legalizing, and not just medically, but for recreational purposes, the substance known as cannabis. So it's progress, and congratulations to you and Casper and his show for helping all of that along.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, LEAP is going to continue on Wednesdays. Leonard Freeling will be there, and he's for anybody that doesn't know, he's been a guest on before. He's a former judge and a prosecutor, I believe. And well, did you ever believe this, Jim? I mean, and I can ask that because you know that I felt this way about drug policy before I became a cop. So this is not an insult for me to ask you. Did you always feel this way, or is it something that came to you while you were in the business or whatever?
Well, and to tell you the truth, my principal concern all along has been the violence that's caused by prohibition. Just like in the Al Capone days, when the gangsters would be shooting each other, fighting over control of a business to make the money, and then the politicians aiding the bad guys by insisting on prohibition, even though it was causing violence. So here in Chicago, we had 12 kids, maybe it was 14, I don't remember, killed in one weekend in Chicago back in 1989. And then I would listen to the politicians, Republican and Democrat alike, saying, we're going to get tough. We're going to crack down. We're going to take back our streets. We're going to show them who's boss. We're going to toughen these penalties, 3-time loser laws. We're going to build some prisons. President Bush said, you think we don't have room for you in the prison system? We're going to make room. And so that's what we did for all of these years, and turned the home of the free into the prison capital of the world with intolerance. And so now finally things are getting better, and that's what started me down the road of drug policy reform. I was a drug prosecutor. I was a homicide prosecutor in Chicago in the early 70s, and the best heroin we had in the United States was 2% pure, and often it was Mexican mud, because it was this black stuff, didn't look very appetizing. Mm-hmm. And we weren't getting the Golden Triangle white powder, and then Afghanistan stuff, of course, now. And now after these 40-some years of prohibition, we've got 90% pure heroin across the United States and a nice, fluffy white consistency. So the drug war causes what it was designed to prevent. My interest was attracted because of the violence. We're killing 10,000 people a year in Mexico because of the drug war supported by the United States with $400 million a year, just as we supported the Colombian drug war, killing people left and right. Central America, we had 57,000 people from Honduras standing at the southern border trying to get in to escape the drug war violence that the United Nations drug policies supported by the U.S. and China and Russia and Sweden and other drug prohibitionist nations, which has wreaked havoc on the world. And the people, through these initiatives and referendums, starting with marijuana and heroin substitution clinics, are changing things. And the violence will go away.
Yeah. Well, it's always been that I often say that we have this misnomer that the drugs create the violence. In fact, I was just at an exchange. I'm on a list of, ironically, and it's odd that I would be there, but I got invited. I'm on one of those LinkedIn lists, and they're all addiction treatment people except for me. And one of them was talking about alcohol causing violence and stuff, and I reminded them that we ran into that problem when we dealt with domestic violence, because we would deal with domestic violence and there'd be maybe the person who was committing the violence would be an alcoholic, and then that alcoholic would go into recovery. And the only thing that changed when the alcoholic went into recovery was the intensity of the violence decreased a little bit. But the violence happened just as often as it did before they were drinking alcohol as it did when they stopped drinking alcohol. And they had to get treatment for that way to solve problems before they got a hold of their violence. And that is one of the pillars of this whole prohibition idea is that and it's a flat out lie, that the drugs cause these things. You know, I said, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said to me, well, these drugs are hugely addictive, and they're extremely addictive. I said no, the drugs aren't addictive at all. In fact, if the drugs were addictive, then roughly pretty close to 90% of the alcohol drinkers in America would be alcoholics if the alcohol caused addiction. But addiction is not something that is caused by the drug. It is a behavior that is in the individual, not the drug.
Yeah, well, the statistic I heard once is really that tobacco is the most addictive. Because when you inhale the drug, it's the quickest way to get the drug to the brain. And it's heroin addicts saying it's harder to get off tobacco than it is the heroin. And that, of course, doesn't mean it's easy to get off either one. I used to smoke. I don't recommend it. Cigarettes, tobacco.
Right.
But, if I knew I was leaving Earth and I had a week left, I think I'd go get a pack and enjoy it.
Well, you know me very well. I didn't quit smoking. I just quit buying them.
Yeah.
And as you well know, when I'm around people that smoke, I smoke, you know. And it's stuff.
And I never really quit because it's too hard to quit, so I just don't smoke.
Yeah, just put off the next one for a while.
Yeah, right. I'm just on a long sabbatical here.
Yeah. It's interesting because we're starting to see reassessments of the addiction rate for tobacco, and it's starting to decrease as we pull the social support system out from underneath smoking. And I think that once we get a normal attitude about smoking in this society, not a society support of it, but just, as you say, a tolerance of it, I think you'll see the addiction rate drop back down, because you're starting to see more people that smoke like I do. Have one once in a while, but they don't buy them. And again, that has to do with individual personal behavior. Want to get back to something else. We got a break coming up, Casper?
In just a couple of minutes.
Okay, well, I'll give a little prelude to this, and because you've been one of the key lead people that's been involved in this activity, and so you can give us all the background on it. When I first thought of the idea for this organization of cops and judges and stuff back in the 90s, well, I didn't think of judges, I just thought of cops. But fortunately, I had smarter people that surrounded me when we formed this organization, and we got everybody in it. But I wanted this organization to be important and everything else. I never in a million years thought that we would be an organization that would be part of the UN. But thanks to work from people like Jim Gierach, our guest today, we have become an NGO or a non-governmental organization recognized by the UN, and we have a suggestion for many changes to the drug policy treaty that currently exists, and we're starting to get some attention with it. And when we get back from the break, I'll let Jim go into that a little bit more. If you want to give us a little heads up, Jim, before the break.
Sure. Really, the fountainhead for drug prohibition for the world are 3 United Nations drug prohibition treaties. And in those treaties, once the nations of the world signed them, 193 nations, each country had to go home and to provide for the criminalization of the recreational use of any and all drugs listed in the schedules. And of course, one of the drugs listed in the schedules is marijuana in Schedule 1, right beside heroin, which shows you how ridiculous the list is. And because of that prohibition mandate, the United States came home like the other countries, and we passed the Controlled Substances Act that outlawed all of these drugs and provided for these draconian prison sentences for anybody who violates, which is what turned us into the prison keeper of the world. So it's the United Nations drug treaties that need to be amended. And there's going to be UNGAS, the United Nations Special Session on Drugs, coming up in 2016. And so we've got about a year and a half to get nations to file proposed amendments to the UN drug treaties to end this horror and curse on the world.
Okay, and we have already submitted some suggestions to that, and we'll get into them after the break. Casper?
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
I smoke marijuana, yeah. And in the evening time, when I'm alone, I smoke marijuana, yeah. Oh, marijuana. Oh, marijuana, yeah. Oh, I got my ganja. Like a rasta, yeah. In the morning light, I lie awake. I smoke marijuana, yeah. And by the afternoon, I am stoned. Oh, marijuana, yeah. Oh, marijuana, marijuana. Oh.
That weed out the bag, sprinkle it slow, cross the zigzag, hold it up, roll it up, tighter and tighter, grab your lighter, flick it, pull the smoke, be cool, don't show, let it out, that's what getting high is all about. Look through the bottoms of your eyelids, feel like you did when you was a little kid, happy, positive and mellow, spreading love on to the next fella. Or lady, I look like I'm shady, cause my eyes are redder than Grady. You know the boys from my neighborhood, we look real bad but we feel so good.
And if I'm old and gray and I live alone,
what you gon' do, homeboy?
I smoke marijuana,
I'ma be right there with you, come on.
And in my garden I will grow my own.
You gon' grow it? Hey,
marijuana.
Sing it, come on.
Oh, marijuana.
Hey, speaking of which,
oh, marijuana.
Can you pass that over here, please?
Oh, I got my ganja.
I'm about to get my ganja. Yeah.
Dread like a rasta. Come on, dread it like a rasta.
Come on.
Oh, I got my ganja.
I'm finna get the blunt. Yeah, man.
Dread like a rasta.
Let me hit it one time.
Oh, how I wish I was in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Marijuana, gonna burn it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Marijuana, gonna burn it up, yeah. Marijuana, gonna burn it up, yeah.
We are having a wonderful Wednesday here during the holiday season. It is a salute to LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We are saying goodbye to an old friend, and you can take the word old and put that as a true statement on many levels. Right, Peter?
Absolutely.
We're just a couple of old geezers here trying to end the war on drugs, and we are celebrating LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Gentlemen, the police have been in the headlines. I don't know, I think you've noticed. I don't know. These past few weeks, and I was surprised. I thought the demonstrations would be 1 or 2 nights, but apparently every single night now for a couple of weeks they've had thousands of people pour out into the streets in Miami and New York and Portland and Los Angeles and shut down traffic, all in protest to police brutality. Now, I don't know. The police seem to me like a handful of people that you can walk up and hug and tap on the shoulder and ask for help anytime you need them. What's going on here?
Well,
Go ahead.
in many neighborhoods, the police are the enemy. The police are not a friend. The police stop and frisk randomly without probable cause, hassling primarily black people, poor people, and using excess force. The war on drugs has basically cloaked law enforcement with a license to use excessive force in law enforcement, and to do it with impunity, to the point where it's almost as if law enforcement has a blanket immunity from misconduct. We had this case in Ferguson, Missouri, where an offense starts out as jaywalking, and with the policing that we saw put in place, we ended up with somebody shot and killed. When law enforcement ends up making the situation on the street worse instead of better, that's bad policing. The war on drugs invites that bad policing. The war on drugs invites the police to come through the front door with the battering ram. We've got to get in there before they flush the toilet and get rid of the drugs. And it's this insanity which has eaten away at their constitutional rights to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, violence, MEG groups, SWAT teams, the militarization of the police, the evils that we see in the criminal justice system with racial discrimination, excessive force, all were if not born of the war on drugs, were nurtured and made into the monster that the war on drugs is on society today.
Yeah, Jim, you're right on the money. The only thing I would just edge a little bit is it isn't just the war on drugs. It's in my opinion, it's the whole concept of morality policing. When you put police out on the streets and armed, militarized police out on the streets in a free society, and you give them the job of telling what people should be doing in the privacy of their own homes with each other and what they should be doing, this is not a function of law enforcement, and it is not something that the public helps us with. 20 years of police work, I had all kinds of crimes reported to me. Burglaries, stolen bike, officer, somebody took my car, stole it. Not once in 20 years did I have somebody come up to me with this complaint. Officer, that man sold me drugs. Never happened. Why? Because they bought something they wanted from the person that sold it to them. they didn't believe that that was a crime. As you well know, as a prosecutor, we would arrest people for drug possession, and you would ask them, where did you get the drugs? And their response would be, I found them. Because they don't want to get the person they bought them from in trouble, even if they're going to jail. These are unenforceable laws. And the first part about it is they're unenforceable. You're never going to eliminate the problem. It's always going to be there. Get the criminal justice system out of it. And secondly, if there's money involved in that activity, you create violence in your society.
Well, and another point to take in consideration is how many drug salesmen and saleswomen are there really? I mean, drugs sell themselves. I mean, you have to have advertising to be talked into buying cigarettes or liquor or to buy a certain brand of mayonnaise or potato chips. But, you know, usually when you're wanting some marijuana, you don't have to look for advertisement. You don't have somebody knocking on your door trying to tell you why their marijuana is better than their neighbor's marijuana. You know, you just walk in, you just go get it.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're going around saying, hey, you know where I can score? You know where I can score? I mean, this is something, this is not a function of criminal justice.
Right.
I really like your description of morality policing because it's exactly what it is.
Yep.
The war on drugs is built on intolerance, and tolerance in the world used to be a virtue until the drug war came by, and now when somebody else does something that doesn't fit with your moral code or your physical health code, societies seemed to have been justified in trying to use police to enforce this morality, this decision. And as a consequence, really what we've done is stripped society of morality. Yep. We've corrupted police and judges and lawyers whose economic interest ends up supporting a war on drug that causes what it was designed to prevent. You want your overtime officer? Well, then we need this drug war, right? So we got the money. Used to be the drug dealer's money. Now it's our money. Used to be their sailboat, their car, their airplane. Now it's ours. Well, we'll use it for the DARE program. All these justifications, but it's an economic incentive that now continues this horrible prohibition economic engine that we've put in place. And then we catch some kid in a controlled sale and we tell him, now listen, kid, you're going to tell us who sold you these drugs. You want help, you're going to wait forever on these free controlled sales we got you in. And unless you get help for us, then today's the day. I'm going to ask you again, who sold you the drugs? Where did you get the drugs? And so basically we're selling the idea as police, law enforcement officers, to say, rat on somebody else to save yourself.
Yep.
Forget about the golden rule. Go, sacrifice somebody else and save yourself. And it's destroyed the moral fabric of our country.
Exactly. And it again, what Casper said, earlier about cops are supposed to be your friend, and if you need help, that's what you teach people exactly the opposite. And the other thing I want to get back to real quick is because words are extremely important. And we talk about the militarization of police. The militarization of police started in this country when Nixon declared a war on drugs. And that made cops, when I was a senior training officer and I had a rookie that I was training for 6 weeks, I would always tell them that the strangest thing about this job, the strangest thing about being a cop, is that every time you arrest somebody, you're arresting your boss. Because you work for the people. That's who you work for. So you always look at it that way. Now, as you said very clearly earlier, Jim, now it's not your boss you're arresting, it's the enemy. And not only that, but we got a lot of young officers coming into this profession, into law enforcement over the last 10, 15 years, who have military experience and in fact have morality policing experience because a lot of their military experience was in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, where morality policing is a fundamental principle of their whole system. So
You remember when Somalia, the people there were starving, and the United States finally comes in and starts dumping food left and right. We're going to help these people, and so our troops move in, our food comes in, and we're there a short time. We say, these people are using khat. Khat is this drug which nearly 90% of the population is on khat, KHAT, and they would fly it in from the mountains. They wrap the leaves of the plant in banana peels, and the flights would come in daily, and everybody would spend a minor amount of their money on this thing. Didn't hurt anybody. Nobody was really impaired. It was just part of the culture there. And so the United States says, well, we're providing you guys with food. We can't have drugs being supplied to all these people. So we outlawed khat. And made them outlaw khat. And of course, what happened? The prices dramatically increased. People were starting to be prosecuted and punished, and so the percent of people's money that was going to drugs dramatically increased, reduced their ability to buy food and take care of their families. And so when these things were being reported in the papers, I wrote a letter to the editor and said, that American drug policy is a high price to pay for food, which was true.
Yes, absolutely right on the money. And we got another break coming up, Casper?
In about 3 minutes.
Okay, very good. Let's get back to the UN thing a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what we recommended and about the paperwork we've submitted and where we are with that stuff.
Well, the United Nations drug prohibition treaties basically criminalize recreational drug use and provides and requires that each nation provide for the deprivation of liberty and incarceration of people who violate it. So it's a prohibition system that's in place by virtue of the UN treaties. And so Leitch comes along and sees that when we meet in Vienna each year in March at the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs, no one is really saying, well, let's try a new drug policy. No one is saying, well, do these treaties really cause more harm than good? Do these treaties really put more drugs in place? Because every year when I go back there, the drug cartels are inventing more synthetic drugs because it can't be against the law if we just invented it. So they continually add new drugs to the list, but the drugs are being created, new drugs, faster than they can add them to the prohibition list. So what Leitch has done is said, we need to end the prohibition system. We need regulated, controlled markets because some drugs are too dangerous to allow in society without them being regulated. Alcohol is regulated. We limit how much alcohol you can put into a can of beer so the guy who drinks too many beers knows, well, it's the same beer I had last week and I feel just as bad as I did then. But at least they're deciding, and they're deciding what to drink and how much based on what they know. And so the hard liquor, well, you can't exceed 95 or 100% proof. And it says on the bottle. But this prohibition system has people using dangerous drugs in the dark, where they don't know whether the marijuana or the heroin or the ecstasy has been contaminated or cut with what. There's no government regulation. So Leitch is saying, let's control and regulate these things that we know are going to be in society so that it's safer for people, so they know what they're consuming. Let's stop putting these people in prison. Let's start putting in place harm reduction programs where somebody who's addicted to heroin and is injecting intravenously can go to a place where it's safe, where they're using a drug of a known commodity, where naloxone is readily available to counteract the overdose cases on heroin so people aren't dying. Let's give it to the police officers and to the healthcare and the ambulance drivers. So let's put in place a rule that says if you're going to sell somebody heroin, you have to sell them naloxone at the same time. Mm-hmm. Well, we can't do that at the moment because when you outlaw something, the irony is you give up the right to control and regulate it. Leitch is saying we're going to reinvest the right to control and regulate substances so that people know what they're using and consuming. We're going to stop going through the front door. We're going to stop giving blank carte blanche authority to police to rough people up. You know, when somebody's under the influence of alcohol or some other mind-altering substance, it's a license that gives law enforcement the right, well, maybe not the right, but the power to abuse people. Yeah. And who's going to care? This is a drunk. This is a druggie. And we need to remove that. We need to restore the golden rule. We need to care about people, and that's basically what this LEAP treaty does. So if any nation in the world who is a party to the existing 3 drug treaties files an amendment with the Secretary General of the United Nations, the Secretary General is then obligated to send that proposed treaty amendment to every nation who's a member. And if we did that now, before March 2015, in about, 4 months, we would be talking with delegates of the world at the Commission on Narcotic Drugs about specific concrete reform that could make drug policy for the world better. And we could do it in advance of 2016 UNGAS, when this UN special session of the General Assembly will meet in New York to actually hopefully amend these prohibition drug treaties. So that's what LEAP is trying to do. That's why we're trying to get out on Facebook pages and Twitter pages LEAP's treaty amendment. It's called LEAP Proposed Amendment of UN Drug Treaties. And it is available online. If you go to the LEAP website, leap.cc, over on the right-hand side of the first page is the actual link to the treaty and to a petition, which is on moveon.com, saying amend these drug treaties.
Yeah, that's and like I said, just to remind everybody, this is I believe since the original drug treaty was made, this is the first attempt there's ever been made by anybody to change this like this. And secondly, again, I want to remind everybody that we are an organization. The only reason we're discussing this is because the UN has recognized us as a non-governmental organization, which that's true, right, Jim? That we now have positions on boards and stuff like that we can be involved in.
Correct. We have the right now to participate with NGOs who have received consultative status from the United Nations. Some of the major drug policy reform organizations in the world have not received such status. Right. And LEAP was very pleased this year to be welcomed by the United Nations as an expert on drug policy. And what makes us so unique is that LEAP is really the leader of these drug policy reform groups who is saying we need to control and regulate all drugs. The new horrible drug we're going to invent tomorrow needs to be controlled and regulated if people are using it. And instead of some reform groups are saying, well, let's just legalize or control this one drug. Well, all drugs can be dangerous and need to be controlled and regulated, and people need to know what they're consuming.
Absolutely.
Well, that can be true with sugar, too. I mean, there are people who have diabetes who, if they eat sugar, can die from it. I mean, and it can be considered a drug. It's addictive. And can you imagine if Congress tried to outlaw sugar?
Once upon a time, tobacco was outlawed. During the Ottoman Empire in the 1600s, smoking was a death penalty offense, which is another crazy thing. If you look over the centuries of history at what substances are prohibited, once in a while they're killing you for smoking, and once in a while they're locking you up for drinking, and today we're locking people up for a whole bunch of substances that are really just another variety of mind-altering substances, which people have used from the beginning of time and which they're going to use until the end of time.
Well, one of the things I've got to do before the end of this hour is take a commercial break, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to come right back and pick up where we left off here at Time for Hemp.
the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.
Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Yeah, stay alert with consciousness, but you know what you do behind your closed doors ain't nobody's business what you do. And we are encouraging the world around us to realize that is a best way to move forward, and that these prohibition laws are truly a failed policy, no matter what continent you're living on. With that said, we are having a joint conversation with my joint friends here at a joint organization known as LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And, of course, anytime you hear the word joint on the big joint broadcast, nearly 2.5 million people all around the world pack their pipes, their vaporizers, their bongs, and take Time for Hemp. Also, we've got a Google app you can find in the Google Store to download onto your Android phones and devices, and make it easier to keep up to date with Time for Hemp. Peter Chris, it has been wonderful to have you as a joint host for 4.5 years. You will be missed, I can certainly tell you that, and I have looked forward to every Wednesday with you.
Well, it's been a pleasure. In fact, you know me well enough to know that if it hasn't been a pleasure, I wouldn't have been around this long. So just the simple fact that I kept coming back every week meant I enjoyed it as much as you did, too. I want to mention one thing real quick to people, because some people out there still have a little problem with the term legalization, and they feel more comfortable with the term decriminalization. And I want to explain something to any of them that are out there listening if they fall into that category. Alcohol prohibition from 1920 until 1933 was decriminalization. We didn't arrest users. We didn't arrest people for personal possession. We only went after the sellers and the manufacturers, which is what we call decriminalization now. So if you want an idea about whether decriminalization works or not, 13 years of alcohol prohibition. Secondly, as another example, we've all heard about the stop and frisk stuff that's going on in New York City. I want to point out to people that most of those arrests are based on marijuana arrests. And in 1975, we decriminalized marijuana in New York State. So decriminalization is not the answer. Jim, we're just about up to the end of this thing. Have you got anything you want to plug, or you want to repeat any plugs, or do another thing on the UN thing, whatever?
Well, I want to use that couple of minutes to say that, Peter, you're one of the 5 people who started LEAP. Police officers who, from their daily experience, recognize that the war on drugs doesn't work. Many police officers recognize that, but 5 of you put together an organization that started in a couple of countries with a couple of people and is now spread through 150 plus countries with over 150,000 members of LEAP who last year, 2013, we did over 3,000 presentations to groups and around the world, radio, TV, personal things, and I want to just thank you on behalf of all of the people who one day will be helped by this horrible prohibition that will have been brought to an end. So, on behalf of LEAP and those many people, thank you, Peter.
I only did it for myself, but I appreciate the accolade. It's nice. Casper, this will be our last goodbye. Thank you very much. Everybody should know it's leap.cc. Oh, yeah, I'm up to 917,000 hits on that YouTube thing. I want 1 million. Please give me 1 million.
Somebody go see Peter's. What's the name, Peter? How can we get to it?
Well, if you, in fact, I found out if you Google the words Peter Christ, the first thing that pops up is that YouTube thing. So that's the easiest way to find it. Just Google my name.
And Christ is spelled just like Christ.
Well, that's what he likes to think. I'm not sure which he I'm talking about.
Okay, so put in Peter Christ and see your video.
Yep, please. Thank you, Casper. It's been a pleasure. Casper?
It has been a joy, Peter, to have you. I have my mute on it. To have you on the program. You brought an awful lot to the table, to say the least. And I know you will be missed. We will have you back as a guest occasionally. And
sure.
I promise you, when you pass away 10 years from now, we'll have a memorial show for you, and we'll sit around and we'll smoke and think about the times that you were the joint host on the broadcast.
30 years. He's young.
Yeah. I'll take 10.
And we will be having a new joint host next year. This show is being heard Christmas Eve 2014 for the first time on the big broadcast. And so we want to wish you a happy holidays. And with that said, remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and spend some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, time for hemp! Yeah!
When the sun peeks through my window and a new day began, will I greet each and every sun ray? Another day I can be thankful for each breath I take. All life's just one big bouquet. And there's a sparrow up on the rooftop singing every day. And he's always got a story to tell. Come on now and twist and roll. Grab that lighter, we'll burn one slow. We'll chase our troubles away, yeah. Come on now and twist and roll. Free your mind, free your soul. We'll chase our troubles away. 'Cause every day is a good morning, oh yeah. And you're a good one, what a beauty. I'm so happy to be lying in this bed with you. Senorita, you're my weakness, but I just gotta say I'm crazy about the things that you do. I'm gonna take my little board out in the deep salt water and try and find a wave again. Come on now and twist and roll. Grab that lighter, we'll burn one slow. We'll chase our troubles away, yeah. Come on now and twist and roll. Free your mind, free your soul. We'll chase our troubles away. 'Cause every day is a good, good morning, oh yeah, oh yeah. Come on, let's burn one nice and slow, 'cause we ain't got nowhere to go. So why don't we waste it away? 'Cause I've got nothing on my mind. I'm just hoping we can find us a cool spot in the shade. See, I woke up feeling good today, and I finally chased my blues away. So what more can I say? Come on now and twist and roll. Grab that lighter, we'll burn one slow. We'll chase our troubles away, yeah. Come on now and twist and roll. Free your mind, free your soul. We'll chase our troubles away. 'Cause every day is a good, good morning, oh yeah, oh yeah.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.